Welcome to the Distillers Institute Podcast. I'm your host, Anne Gigney. I'll speak with experienced distillery owners who have launched and grown their own distilling business, and we'll share their wins, their successes, their challenges, and find out just what it takes to make a great distilling business. Hi, everyone, and welcome to our Distillers Institute Podcast. I'm Anne Gigney. Today I am joined by the amazing Rob Auld, all the way from Auld Farm over there on the other side of the ditch. How are you today, Rob?
Good, Anne. Hi from the East Island. You're in the West Island, so that's only fitting.
And I see in the background we've got a fantastic picture. I'm guessing that is a picture of your farm.
Absolutely, yeah. Not combines aren't out working today, but yes, this is our farm. Piece of land that we've got to call home for just over 100 years now, which is pretty exciting.
Amazing. So, Rob, we met here in Tassie a number of years ago. Gosh, that time has flown really, really quickly. Tell us about Auld Distillery, what you are, how big you are, what you make. I guess pull that story together for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess something that started as a kitchen bench creation idea almost way back in 2015. That was refined through doing a business development course and having to come up with a business plan that we had to submit. And everybody thought it was a great idea. And I guess Tony and I were at a point where we had 3 young boys. The farm had just turned 90 years in the family at that stage. We needed to add value to what we were doing to know that it could be there for another 90 or 100 years. If everybody thought that our plan was looking really great and we loved the idea, then why don't give it a crack? Because bugger me, it can't be that hard. And that was the first mistake. But here we are, 10 years on from when we first started on the kitchen bench, and the distillery was formed as a company 2017. That was when we first started laying down casks from 2017 harvest, albeit in a very small way initially. That grew and grew, and by April 21 would become the 3rd biggest producer in the country, which we don't really know how that happened. And it was never our intention to be the biggest at all. It was just something that we loved doing, was making the best products that we could from the grains that we were growing.
Great, Rob. And so you are both farm and distillery. You've just alluded to what's on the farm, but what's on the farm?
Yep, farm and distillery. So everything is here based on the property. From growing the grain, we grow 9 different grains on farm. Malt barley is still the dominant grain that goes through the distillery to make our single malts. We were always growing lots of different grains to supply different parts of the food and feed industry throughout our region, Southland, and in turn the lower South Island. But there was a desire to know, okay, if everybody's making whiskey from single malt barley, or barley as malted barley, we should be able to do that. And turns out we could. But what do all these other grains taste like? Some of them have been used before, and some of them have never been seen, as far as I'm aware, in whiskey, like purple wheat and black barley, things like that. Amazing flavours coming from all these different grains, and it just sort of became that all the grains that were growing on farm, all 9 of them, find their way through brewing and distilling. Some malted, some not, which it just makes for a really exciting range. Some would argue a little bit too big a skew line or a big family tree, but one way to find out.
So, Rob, it is both farm and distillery. That's a very busy schedule. So, what does it actually look like to pull together a farm and that's the family farm business, and a distillery at the same time? What does your day look like?
Hectic-ish. Yeah, I guess we were definitely full-time farming before we started the distillery, and funnily enough, we're still full-time farming, but with the distillery, it becomes the fullest of time. How do we fit it all in? It's a bit of a juggle. The kids are growing up and becoming quite helpful. That's pretty awesome. We couldn't do it without Tony and the team that we have around us. There's a lot of support. There's a lot of people that want to see this happen as much as we do. And I guess it's in that real final push. This is a really exciting year for us after that journey, laying down casks over the last years since that 2017 harvest. Is, now's the year that we're like, okay, I really would like to release single malt this year. It's tasting at a point where we really enjoyed. It's well and truly clocked up its age statement as being ready for a whiskey, but I was like, no, when's it ready for us to release and put a name on that? And that's 2025 for us.
That's exciting. I mean, releasing your first single malt's kind of like having your first child, really. Um, it's timely because I know you've got a pledge fundraise around the single malt happening at the moment. I've had a little bit of a sneaky peeky at some of the things that are on offer for folks that want to be part of that. Tell us why you went down the pledge me or the fundraising route, and then I'll ask you a little bit about some of the things that people can I guess take up through that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I guess when we're doing events, which we find ourselves doing a number of, as everybody that knows, you can't sell a secret. You have to tell somebody about it. Doing events is something that we really love, and sharing that story. I guess what we get fed back to us is that people are really investing into Tony and I as people that have got a passion for a project and driving a brand forward and a story forward and future generation succession, all those sorts of things. That's really what they're emotionally investing into, I suppose, is the best description of that. And then being able to collect a piece of the product to take home, or whether that's coming here to the farm and experiencing the distillery tours, tastings at the tasting room, that sort of thing. They can take a piece of us away to remember us by, but it's very much they're buying into the brand. So we thought, well, how can we kind of scale that up and share that out a little bit wider? And that's where the Pledge Me or the crowdfunding style of campaign came from, that, well, we could share this to a lot more people. There's a lot of people that live further away that can't come to visit that can still have access to this sort of portal.
That's awesome. So really you're talking about providing the opportunity for folks, even us over here in Australia. I think we can take a part of it too. Take home a part of your story, or take home a part of your well, it's not even taking home part of the story. I'm having a look at the things on the Pledge Me as I'm talking to you. I mean, potentially I could take home a bottle of your whiskey, your new single malt release. How did you actually come up with all of the different offerings that people might actually like to pick up?
That's come from a wee list that we've had in the tasting room for a while, where people would say to us, gosh, it'd be good if you did such and such, or it'd be good if you had this. And we're like, well, if there's some good to haves, then that's something that people are after, that we could do that for sort of this campaign, I guess. And we sat down, wrote a bit of a list and dropped out a lot of stuff because Rob and Tony had far too many ideas to put on one page, and narrowed it down. And I don't know, it just is a nice list with a bit of a range. It's very much focused on this is coming up. We're going to release a custom bottle at the same time as we have our whiskey, and we need a bit of support to do that. And what better way to do that than share some of that as some of the rewards as the 700ml bottle of whiskey, but also sharing the spirit itself through different formats. So the hip flask that can come with a dram and other ways to be involved in tasting packs, that sort of thing.
That's brilliant. I think the one that tickles my fancy is the private seed to sip experience, because really, I mean, what that looks like for me is getting 10 of my mates together and all coming down at Christmas time. Not the best time, says Robert. Anyway, bad luck. 10 people at $165 each, and we're all having a party at your house.
Absolutely.
Doing whiskey stuff. Sounds good to me. So just jumping back off the crowdfunding for a sec, Rob, how big is the distillery? If you're talking about size of stills or size of footprint, or how much you're making here, what does that look like?
Yeah, great question. So brew days for us are about 500 kilos of grain per day, depending on the grain, but that's mostly what they are. We run 2 stills, or we have 3 stills, I suppose, but 2 that are going through the whiskies, both Nat Lewis stills from Tasmania. We learned a lot of amazingly good things from Tasmania. 1,000-litre wash still and 400-litre spirit still, and when they're running, they're seldom ever cold. Like that's what we like to do is keep them ticking away. We've quite a long distillation time, which makes for quite a nice wide spirit. 16 years is their spirit run, so it's quite, quite really. I guess the spirit coming off the end is really trying to showcase the flavours of those grains that we've spent all that time and energy developing out in the field, and then nurturing through to harvest. And then how can we showcase that the best through distillation or fermentation distillation? It's a big learning curve. No, there's definitely some grains are harder to work with than others, but the flavours out the other end are really rewarding. And watching those coming through maturation is really exciting too.
And Rob, this is a loaded question, kind of, because I know the answer. But what did your education pathway look like to get to the point where you can then go, oh, that grain, or that grain, or that cut, that ferment? What did that actually look like for you?
A lot of trial and error, I suppose. It was finding what's everything from the water. I suppose that was a process of narrowing down that our groundwater that we had in copious amounts wasn't the best for brewing. Our Southland rainwater was a very pure story, but then discovering that really we did need that mineral complexity coming through. So up the back of the farm we have amazing wetland, and it's fed by a lot of springs. Turns out that those springs were very high in calcium. They're coming out of seam limestone rock. So that was one pillar of having really, really good water, and then match that with our grains, and then what was the yeast that was going to do that. So we sort of uncovered all of those three, and then went, wow, what can we, what grain works well with this? What casks are going to work well with those different spirits as well? There's not hardly a day goes by that we don't do tastings here that people go, oh my gosh, they're all clear, and yet they all taste so different when they start their journey. And that's quite exciting to, some of the most hardened whiskey drinkers are just fascinated with what we've uncovered and processed, and that there is a real terroir in whiskey, even that season to season change that you might think it's the same grains, the same paddock, same distillery, but hey, at the same time, Mother Nature provides us with all those different sunshine airs, the amount of rain, everything really, highs and lows. It all affects that end spirit, and that's pretty cool.
And Rob, this crowdfunding, you've alluded to the fact you've got whiskies. This crowdfunding that's coming up is about your first single malt release. And you alluded to it before. 2025 was going to be the year. You knew it was the right time, readiness for that. What's going to make this particular release so special?
I think your analogy before, Anne, of it being like your firstborn is pretty true. You only get to experience that once too, I suppose. But it is, I don't know, what is it? It is really exciting. It's a little daunting, I'm not going to lie, sharing something with the world. But we're happy with it, and it truly is exciting to see those casks coming of age and coming out as what is some of the older first released whiskey in New Zealand.
Have you got a big party planned, or a special bottle or a special label planned for this particular release?
All of the above. Yep. It's definitely we often get told that we don't celebrate our wins enough because we kind of keep feeling like there's more coming onto the table, so there's more we've got to achieve. But no, this is one of those we need to pause and celebrate that we've got it as far as we have. And how has it happened so fast is probably something that we look at and go, gosh, it seems like only yesterday we first met in Tasmania back 2017. But at the same time, when you're waiting on whiskey, that takes a long time. But the time gone by has happened really fast.
Yeah, amazing. And you sort of alluded to celebrations. Happy birthday for 100 years. Was that last year?
Yeah, May last year, as a family, we turned 100 years on farm, which, again, nobody really knew how that was to happen. But
you look really good for a 100-year-old.
I know. It's that whiskey, to be fair, Anne. That's what does it. And so a bit of a celebration for that. We released a little of our oat whiskey as a bit of a teaser to the market as a single grain oat and a collector's edition pack for the farm centenary. And and to come ahead of this year's single malt release.
And Rob, we often ask folks about, how they're able to build their distillery, how they're able to scale their distillery. What did that actually look like for you guys when you started out? I mean, it's a question I probably should have asked when we're asking about the distillery, but did you guys have to find the fit out, find the investment, find all this? Did you have to do all that work yourself and then get investment for that?
Yep. So, yes, Rob's terrible at not letting other people do jobs. So, if there's something to be done, I generally would try to upskill myself to learn how to do that, whether that was fitting out the sheds that we had on farm to be able to be used for different parts of the distilling process, building the distillery itself, fitting out the stills. Yeah, all of those things were something that we were pretty hands-on and involved in all the way through that process. It's very much a project that the farm grew from the start as almost another crop, I suppose you could look at it, and it just it was an 8-year harvest time. That was probably the killer. But it's something that, looking at it as growing a crop, nurturing the distillery all the way through as part of the farm operation, that then it comes of age, and now's that time just before harvest where prepping a combine, getting it ready, and 2025, eh? Who knew?
Wow, chief bottle washer, harvest manager, distiller, and so on.
Yeah.
Marketing. So marketing, without question, is probably sales and marketing, probably the most difficult things for folks in the industry to get around, get their heads around when they start. How did you guys approach taking your product to market, and when did that happen?
Well, initially, I was that guy who just needed a logo to sell something. That was the pitfall of being a primary producer for so long. There was that middleman that did something that charged a lot that we never really knew what they did. But now, having been that middleman and understanding that there is a lot of work goes into building a brand and more than just a logo, crikey, that was quite a lot of effort. So, yes, we built the brand, grew that as sort of telling the story. 2021 was our first release of bottle product with the new makes, and that was to fill a gap that people that were coming on farm for tours wanted to take away a piece of the farm, and we were happy to share that as sets of 3 and sets of 5 different tasting flights, that sort of thing, which is still very popular today, to be fair. And I don't know, nobody's a lot of people tell their story and tell it very well, but what Tony and I love doing is telling that story too. So we really quite like the sales side of things. Marketing and understanding how the world of social media and all that works, I do not absolutely profess to understand any of that. And we could do it way better, I'm sure. But we're learning as we go, and it's amazing what you don't know until you don't know it, and then you work it out and you take another step, and that's pretty cool.
And Rob, I've been having a look at your website while we've been chatting. I've also seen that evolve over the time that I've known you, and it does have a real hands in the earth kind of feel, which, I guess you'd expect given you're a farm distillery. What I really love is remote, rural, and right at the bottom of the world. It's kind of true, isn't it? You're down there where the you have to crack the ice off the tractor before you go to work.
Yeah, chase the penguins out of the driveway before we drive out. Yeah, not quite, but almost. And we are very much. And for a long time, we were fascinated that so many people wanted to come and see us, because where we are, it's not miles away from civilization, but at the same time, it's kind of the middle of nowhere in Southland. But yet, as our visitors would say, it's very much halfway to everywhere. So if they're travelling that Invercargill, Town, Milford Sound, or Queenstown route, they can call in, make a detour to call in to see us, and that's pretty exciting. That, I suppose, we don't just get people that generally drive in just for a cup of coffee. They're coming because they want to understand more about whiskey and who we are and what we do.
Have you ever thought of starting your own craft distillery? At the Distillers Institute, we've got an online course packed with advice from the founders of the Distillers Institute for people wanting to reduce risk, save time and cost in opening a distillery. Go to thedistillersinstitute.com. And Rob, going back to your website again, it said this is for the adventurous, for people prepared to step off the edge of the map. There we go. Willing to take a chance on something new. So what is your cellar door experience at Auld Farm? What is that?
Yep. It ranges. So from as much as some of our travellers are a little, nobody's got as much time to spend. Maybe they haven't got half a day to spend here, hanging out with Tony and I. So it can start with as simple as a tasting at the bar. We'll go through either a mixed range or maybe the whiskies, how they're progressing, some of the gins, if that's something that somebody's also interested in. 45 minutes, and that grows right out to more of a private experience, going through the distillery to understand process, how the farm plays a part into different flavours, ending with a tasting, or right out to a founder's experience where they can really sort of deep delve into what do Tony and I get into this, and what makes us tick, really. And for some people that's just the ultimate. They really, really want to understand, how did this amazing story come to be?
Incredible. Looking at your website, you have gin as well. Tell us a little bit about your product range, because I know about the whiskey and its deliciousness. Tell us a little bit about your other stuff.
Sure. So the gins, we make 3 gins. I guess a little odd in as much as we're the only distillery in New Zealand that makes our gins from origin grain spirits, all grown here on farm. They're made from oats, barley, and wheat. And what we really wanted to try and achieve with our gins was tell that story of the region, of where we are, where we're from, the flavours that come from the farm. And I guess, how does gin come to be? A bit like exactly the same, to be fair, as we do for the whiskey, that real seed to sip journey that wasn't always being told with gin. It was, for a lot of people that come to see us, they was sort of reinforcing the fact that gin appears in the bottle store. It's a bit like milk in the supermarket. Nobody does anything. It just happens. And I was like, I reckon no, we can share that story a bit better than that. So, the gins that we'd created across the ocean, the plains, and the mountain. So sort of the three distinct parts of the region. Each one has its own interesting flavours, and that's a really cool way to bring people on board. And then the other product that we do is the Usquebaugh, which to date has been our biggest seller. Single malt elixir of very much how whiskey was. If you go back 300 years ago, when you're looking at that, how it was in Scotland without barrel aging. If we're looking for an instant drink, Usquebaugh was filling that space, and having its different spices that go into the distill, and as it distills that, it runs through that basket of saffron, which brings in the beautiful colour, and sweetened, unfortunately not with heather honey, because we don't have those amazing big fields of heather, but a very very close replacement was aging our clover honey for a year to have a bittersweet properties to it, and that's hands down been our biggest seller, and highly commended everywhere that it seems to find its way to.
Fantastic. Is it just you and Tony that run the distillery and farm business, or do you have other people as well?
No, we are quite a tight team, but no, it's more than just Tony and I. We can't quite do everything, albeit that we need, no doubt, a lot more people to pull it off as time goes on. We're also conscious of the fact that it's very chicken and egg, whichever way you like to look at it. And so we do what we can do. It works quite well that everything is close, and being here on farm, everything from the kids being able to fit in farming, distilling within the office, helping out. It just works because we're all here at the one location.
On the same page. When you sell your products, where do you sell them through? So do you have a distribution network, or do people come and purchase from you, or do you do online, or do you do a combination of those?
A combination of all of those. Self-distribution as much as we can, and that's That's for no reason other than maybe we haven't met the right people, but that a lot of people love to share our story, but it's always sort of comes back to Tony and Rob and the team that work for Auld Distillery pretty much share that story the best because it is quite a point of difference being a farm distillery and seed to sip, not just a higher price point product for no other reason. And yeah, so we sell it to bottle stores, a lot of bars and restaurants around New Zealand that are really like to tell that story of origin. It's important to them for matching with foods or cocktails that have time to tell an origin story too. And yeah, bottle stores and yeah, as a range of outlets. Not much into the export space as yet. There's been a little bit made it to Tasmania and Australia by amazing individuals and UK, but not in any large pellet quantities. That's coming up for the whisky release though later in the year is what we're working towards.
Rob, you've been involved in the New Zealand industry now, as you say, nearly for 10 years. What have you seen has happened in New Zealand since you started?
Much like we saw in Tasmania when we were training there, it was when we started on the kitchen bench 2015. That was, I believe, five distilleries in New Zealand at that point that were aware of or we could find. That grew out to at peak, I believe, 162, and that was a massive growth. Uh, Obviously, a lot of that was gin, but there's also been a lot of whiskey as well. So there's a lot of amazing products to come to release. It's a pretty exciting time to be involved in the distilling industry in New Zealand, and we kind of have to pinch ourselves that whilst we might be one of the oldest distilleries in the country and one of the bigger ones, we're only just this old compared to everywhere else in the world. So how do we get to call ourselves as being older? But yeah, for the second generation of whiskey in New Zealand, uh, that's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. So in the next, let's say, I won't go 100 years, or no, that's probably your goal, but for the next 10 years, what does it actually look like in terms of growth for Auld Farm Distillery?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. It's not something that we spend too much time on. It is mapping it out as such. It's definitely what we want to see achieved, and that becomes just that ability to grow and kind of make life easier for everybody that's involved currently. So more staff to do the job easier. We certainly don't want to be the biggest by any stretch. We just want to do what we're doing better, more efficiently. There's a lot of different processes in that we would like to move into as we build a new distillery building. That's sort of within the next 2 years. Having that ability to cooper our own casks that we do at a very small scale now, but that's as we've got casks coming out of maturation, being able to reuse them makes absolutely perfect sense. Some of the energy recovery processes that we're going through at the moment also just make things more efficient so we can lay down that stock cheaper for a longer run.
Now, I was going to ask you as a almost closing question, which is your favourite child, but I'm not going to, and I'm talking about the whiskey here, not the children.
No.
The fact that you've got your single malt kind of on the brink of release, let's make the assumption that's going to be one of your favourite children. What can people expect out of that whiskey? What does the flavour profile look like?
It's a good question. Very grain driven, so it's very base spirit. And as much as if you go right back to the new makes and you follow those new makes through their journey in cask maturation to the end, you can see those grain flavors are apparent all the way through, albeit very amplified by the time it gets to end of maturation. That's what are they expecting to see? So very wide mouthfeel. So we'll create with the cool climate grains that we grow here down in Southland, creates a very wide, oily spirit, which hangs on the palate for quite a long time. I guess you could liken it to if you had to pick a region of Scotland, not that we're trying to copy it as such, but if you had to pick a region, we're very much a wide, oily Speyside style of whiskey, so it can handle a long maturation, carry quite a width of flavour, and is quite approachable.
Yum. So when I bring my 10 friends down for my personal experience, and we're drinking your whiskey. What are you going to give me to eat with it? I'm kind of feeling like maybe I could have some dark chocolate or something. But how would you match that with the release when it? Or am I asking top secret questions here? Because actually, I'm guessing this is all going to come out in the tasting notes. But yeah, what am I having with my whiskey?
There is a bit of that. I'll tell you one of the popular ones that's been on the go through the tasting room lately is we've had some visitors from further away that want to come to Southland and experience the bluff oyster because they are the best oysters in the world. Um, uh, yeah, I know, I knew you'd eye roll. Is that they come with, the bluff oysters matching with the single malt whiskey that we've got coming up for release has been very popular. And that's quite cool because that's quite a Southland story.
Great. Well, happy bluff oysters. I'll bring I'll bring some delicious local dark chocolate with me, I think, to have with my whiskey. Okay, so final question for you, Rob. You and Tony have been given a holiday and you're going to go somewhere amazing. And what I want to know is, where are you sitting and what are you drinking and what is the experience of your break actually look like? Maybe it's with your friends, maybe it's, on a far off location. What does that look like for you?
Great question. That's something we don't really get to do, but something we aspire to do, and it's mostly about rewarding the kids for their putting up with mum and dadness, whether that's being dragged away to events or working on farm in the distillery. So going to the Gold Coast is a crowd favourite for our family, just because the boys get to burn off some energy there, and but yeah, further north Queensland where we can sit on a beach, they can run around and do their thing. Tony and I can get to have a bit of a relax, and any whiskey really. To be fair, any local whiskey that we haven't explored before is always on the radar. And if it's as a cocktail, well, it's pretty hard to go past a Black Manhattan or an Old Fashioned.
I love it. So I'm sure that there are some folks up there in Queensland who'll be happy to roll out the red carpet for you when you call by. Rob, that has been fantastic having a quick chat to you over there in Southlands.
Yep, Southland. Yep,
Southlands.
one of us. Yeah.
Thank you. Southland. We're a Southland down here in Tasmania, but we just call ourselves Tasmania. Yes, wonderful having you on the podcast with us today. Gosh, I'm looking forward to your single malt release. Good luck with your crowdfunding campaign, and amazing we'll get to see you and Tony again, maybe in Tasmania soon.
Hopefully so, yes. And we're looking forward to seeing that release as much as you are.
Fantastic. Thanks again, Rob, and we will chat with you again soon. We're getting some great iTunes reviews for those listening. Please pop over to your podcast app and leave us a review.